I'm going to read, my name is Jennifer Vernon, and I'm a professor of communication here, and I also write poetry. I'm going to read a couple of poems from my book, Rock Candy, and just poems that deal with the relationship between animals and people, and or have to do just with human interaction in the natural environment. So to start off with, I'm going to read a poem called Borders, and I wrote this poem when I lived in San Diego, and that's an interesting city because there's a border to the south, and there's a border to the north. There's actually border checks all around that place. And there's, in the geography of the place, there are borders with the desert and the ocean as well. So I'll start there, and then I'll read two short poems that I wrote in Mexico when I was in Oaxaca. And those are kind of poems on the point of view poems from the perspective of a tree and the perspective of a donkey looking down on the ground, but I'll get to those next. I'll start with Borders. Borders. I live in a city with edges. To the east, desert fire. To the west, dunes, salt water. To the north, border check. To the south, barbed wire. A border is a metaphor for a story of two countries, not what land had in mind, not in body's rhyme. Foot knows to love thigh, hip. Heart knows body, breath, lip. A country is a metaphor for a story of what's mine. But countries are just arbitrary lines, not what land has in mind, not in stars' design, not in mountains' rhyme. Countries are just arbitrary lines, ignored by hurricane, twister, breath. Breathe in, hold, blow up, red. Countries are not in body's breath. Breathless, coroner separates flesh. Officials dress what's left in flag. Honeysuckle mint, miss presidential address. Foot knows to love thigh, hip. Face knows lilacs, the smell of peppermint. This next poem is called, and this was written at the start of wartime as well, in recent years. This next poem is called Viento, Wind Gods, and viento is the word for wind in Spanish. And it's based on some of the gods that I saw in Mexico, in a museum, actually. Viento, wind gods. Red clay kiss face, air gods croon, in museum case meditation. Lips pucker puff swoon. Give breath thanks, breathe deep grace. Red clay kiss face, air gods croon. Full belly valley wind, horn player cheeks, mountain lake lids, up tilt chin. Viento face transcends. That's a portrait of some wind gods that look like. And this poem is called, well, it's dedicated to Saint Jude, the patron saint of hopeless cases. And I saw a lot of donkeys when I was in Oaxaca, and thought about the cross that's drawn on their backs. So for Saint Jude, the patron saint of hopeless cases. Jesus softly rode the gray back of one on palm boughs. Donkey, he never said you were a fool to love. You kept your head down, found joy in shade, shadow play across the green blades, pillow walk, hush your hooves made, caked and cracked, ordinary. Your feet were special that day. And here's another a poem from Oaxaca, and this is for a tree that's called El Tule. It's a really big tree. There's actually one kind of like it in San Diego in Balboa Park, that's very old. El Tule. El Tule, square body build, linebacker, like my little brother. Los Zapotecos call you kin, look alike. You are wider than you are tall. Your hair falls, green strands touch dirt, next to hushed human feet. Strands, padded steps, you sound swallow with esophagus roots, eating trumpets from mariachis, cathedral gongs from church, tourist cliques, sneaker skin, foreign tongues, 2,000-year-old subterranean wet river drinker, trunk like sliced bread loaf, lightning loved. Okay, and then I'll read two more poems. This one is from my book. I have a section of poems at the beginning of the book called The Misery Whip Years. And the Misery Whip is a long saw that two men worked to cut down trees. And this section of my book is based on poems with some of my older relatives. I'm from a logging town in Washington State, and I grew up in a really big family with lots of great aunts and great uncles and 6 grandparents, and I loved to listen to them tell stories when I was a kid, and this is one of the stories, and it's called Hummingbird. My grandpa used to stand and watch the red birds out window. He never said why, but Grandma knew. She kept the feeders full of sugar juice and never teased him for loving something small and insignificant. My grandpa worked misery whips on old-growth timber with Raleigh Logan and Brother Del Monte in dense northwest forests of 1940s. A misery whip is a long handsaw. 2 men work it, 1 on each side. To fell a tree took a very long time. When he was 18, he left my grandma with her hunting knowledge and her shotgun, and my mom as a newborn in a cardboard crib. The box said Kotex in curly cursive. He was drafted in Army for World War II. His job was to grave dig. In Okinawa, he shoveled with others, a lot of dead people, smell of the bodies, bandana-wrapped face, waited for grace, lucky strike, cigarette piece, never waited for God. My grandma's name's Gracie. Hummingbird sparks red, spaghetti dinners at Bottle Club, his wife in crimson, most beautiful lady a guy could imagine. They dance into twilight and make it home drunk to 4 sleeping kids who jump in their bed minute later in bird singing morning. Gracie makes the bacon hiss and percolates the coffee. He plays horse with the kids and gives rides. Puts off giving lickings to those who've got it coming. Since he's been gone so long, Gracie has a list for him. That was the hardest part, he says. I didn't want to beat the kids, but we thought if we didn't, they'd turn spoiled. Pull the sweetness from us red, carry on. And then I'll just close with a poem that I wrote since I've been here in Juneau that's called Hustler, and it's about seeing a bear when I came home late. I'm living in the downtown area, and I came home late one night and I saw this bear going down the sidewalk, walking down the sidewalk. His shoulders moving reminded me of a football player or a hustler. And then I thought it was so cool that he got into the neighbor's yard. Maybe my opinion of bears will change after I'm here a while, but I just think they're neat right now. Hustler. Black bear with your locomotion like a footballer, all shoulders, muscles, sheen, moving like a hustler, head turning side to side on the heist of a garbage can. Upright to grip lid tricked by Costco's bear-proof latch, head turning side to side, hunkering down, shoulders, muscle pads rolling forward, getting back fast to forest. No treats to be had, but still got in neighborhood on a Friday night. Feet to mowed grass, all big bad bear and wildness, and not one humane firing a gun. Thank you.